that Abraham was in, they go to this idea of, well, God, maybe if we do what you ask us to do, we can earn your favor and your pleasure back. And here starts religion. This idea that man can do great things to earn or elicit or even manipulate God's favor. And God says, no, that's not what I'm after. Yeah, I asked for circumcision, but that was an obedience response to your heart that was already changed. You're not changing your hearts. You're just trying to change the outward appearance. And so even as far back as Jeremiah and Ezekiel, there's these references of don't circumcise your flesh, circumcise your heart. Right? Jeremiah 4:4 says, circumcise yourselves to the Lord. Remove the foreskins of your hearts, O men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my wrath go forth like fire and burn with none to quench it because of the evil of your deeds. Like, God isn't saying, you did wrong, now go make it right to me. He's saying, you did wrong, change your hearts. And there's a big difference. And Israel and the Jews didn't get it. And they continued to work on the outside man rather than the inside man. And so they actually started to use it as a religious way of oppressing people around them. Oh, you're not circumcised? Sorry, you're excluded. Had to be on the 8th day. Had to be in the middle of the 8th day. Oh, you didn't do it right? No, you're out. And that's why when Jesus comes on the scene, and then the New Testament writers, you'll find all kinds of talk about circumcision. Because the Jews used it as this, and not just the Jews, really it was the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They used it as this thing to be like, I am the real follower of God because I've done what he's called me to do. And Jesus says, but your hearts are rotten. You're like whitewashed tombs where you painted the outside. I've got a Jeep right now. I'm painting the outside. There's a rust spot coming from underneath that there's nothing I can do about. I'm going to paint over it. But in about 6 months, it's going to rust all the way through. Because you can never cover up on the outside what's really on the inside. And so when we get to the New Testament, circumcision actually has changed from representing obedience to God and thankfulness to God's religiousness, trying to earn and force and manipulate God to act on our behalf. And so we're going to pick up in a couple scriptures in the New Testament. I've got 2 quick ones that I want to focus on. The first one's Galatians 6:11. Or actually, we're going to start in 12. It is those who want to make a good showing in the flesh who would force you to be circumcised, and only in order that they may not be persecuted for the cross of Christ. For even those who are circumcised, they themselves keep the law. They do not keep the law, but they desire to have you circumcised that they may boast in your flesh. See what's happening here? They're saying, oh, you want to follow God? Oh, good. That's really great. Oh, but did you know you need to do these things right here? Yeah, did you do these things yet? Oh, you can't follow God. Nice try. But maybe you should do those things. And don't we in the church and we in America tend to default to this mode? Tend to look at people coming into church and saying, oh, your clothes aren't quite right. That's great you want to follow God, but your clothes, they're off. Oh, your speech, your languaging, the things you're saying, that proves that you can't be here. Sorry. Or you can be here, but once you change that, then maybe we'll let you on the worship team. Right? Oh, you want to be an usher? Yeah, you got to cover up that tattoo. I don't know what kind of message that might send people. They might actually think we're encouraging tattoos rather than focusing on the heart. And so he continues, far be it from me to boast in anything except the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by which the world has been crucified to me and I by the world. For neither circumcision counts for anything, nor uncircumcision, but a new creation. This is the key. Go get circumcised. Who cares? Don't get circumcised. Who cares? The key is that your heart is a new creation before God. Which, by the way, I think is a lot harder than just getting circumcised because it hurts for a couple days. But then we think, oh yeah, we're good before God. When changing our heart, that's a little bit harder, isn't it? But that's what God is after. We live in a culture that loves doing things to show off and to be religious. We love religion. We love religious acts. We love working for things. We love acts of the flesh. We love signs of our willpower. Don't we love stories when somebody quits an addiction cold turkey? That's the best kind, right? They were so awesome. They just stopped. We love sacrifice. We love discipline. And we love bragging about our abilities. And the problem that these not only have no value in saving us, absolutely none, but they can actually be detrimental to ourselves and others. They can actually keep others and they can keep ourselves from truly focusing on the heart of the matter, the issue that really matters, and that's our heart before God. Romans talks about it too. And actually, this is through the whole New Testament, this idea of circumcision. My hope is that you'll want to go home from here and read about all the accounts of circumcision because it really is. I would read it as circumcision being the greatest act of man to work to God or to earn salvation. And it's all over. It's littered through the New Testament. But here's the one we're going to close with, Romans 4:3. For what does Scripture say? It says this, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. Now, to the one who works, his wages are not counted as a gift, but his due. And to the one who does not work, but believes in him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is counted as righteousness. What he's saying here is, we love to work for things. We love to earn our way in. We like to be able to say, but God, I put in my 8 hours and 40 hours a week for the last couple years. I'm ready now. We like to be able to almost manipulate God by saying, God, look at my resume. You have to bless me. I deserve it. I have done good things. Now act. Now move. Now heal. Now change that person. Do it because look at me. That's religion. Religion says we have done something to earn any favor in God's eyes. And unfortunately, actually really fortunately, we haven't done anything. And even more fortunately, God's not looking for us to. He's not looking for us to be righteous in his eyes. In fact, our greatest works, right, Isaiah 64, our greatest works are like filthy rags before God. That's a tough one to swallow. Because I think some of my greatest works are pretty good. And Isaiah says they're like menstrual rags. They're like as low as you can get. And so he continues. Is this blessing then only for the circumcised or also for the uncircumcised? We say that faith was counted to Abraham as righteousness. How then was it counted to him? They're going to do the timeline thing. It was not after, but before he was circumcised. He received the sign of circumcision as a seal of the righteousness that he had by faith while he was still uncircumcised. This is key. The timeline of this whole narrative is huge. Genesis 15, he believes and is righteous. That means God sees him as righteous. That means he has already done everything he could do to elicit God's favor and blessing and response. Everything. He has done it already just by believing. And then in chapter 17, it says he follows him obediently. It's almost as if obedience he didn't even have to work at. It was just natural. God said, hey, you're going to do this. And he's like, okay, but he does it, no problem. He doesn't have to make a big show of willpower. He doesn't have to hold a trumpet and wave a banner and I'm going to do all this stuff for God. None of that. He already got it back in verse 15, 20 years earlier. And that's what Paul's pointing out here. When did it happen? When was he righteous and when did he get circumcised? Basically pointing to our greatest works, circumcision, our greatest works cannot earn us anything before God. We live in a culture that really loves the work side of faith, don't we? I mean, I do. I love working and eliciting God to act on my behalf. We love self-help books, don't we? How do we get over an issue? We read a bunch of books and then work really hard, right? We value those who look good on the outside, don't we? Don't we assume that those who look good on the outside are really following God, while we assume that those who don't look as good on the outside must not quite have the same thing going on in the inside? We love showing our deeds to others, talking about what we've done to like kind of show ourselves as great before others. And we love it when people have things together, don't we? And aren't we shocked when somebody doesn't have it together? When something happens, when a marriage falls apart, when something unrattles in a family system, aren't we like, I never saw it coming, it's crazy. Which in the end, isn't that kind of weird? When shouldn't we assume that we all are just a bunch of messed up people trying to follow God? Shouldn't we assume that? Based on Scripture, based on the fact that our righteousness can earn nothing before God, that it's like filthy rags, shouldn't we assume that we all default to this not so good mode, and therefore we all need Jesus, and therefore it doesn't matter if we look good on the outside, but it really matters what we look like in the heart? Isn't it backwards how we view religion and our works getting us favor in God's eyes? It is for me. Faith comes first. Works comes next as obedience. And so I've got a couple thoughts for application. First, we do not have to clean ourselves before we can participate in God's covenant or his community. We just don't. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who are like, I just gotta get a little cleaner. I just gotta get a little bit more close to God. I just got to read my Bible more and go to church more, and I just got to do these things, right? And I mean, it's almost like that's not going to help. It's not. Actually, this is really good news, isn't it? You're like, you don't have to. You really don't. If you're here today and you're like, man, I want that relationship with Jesus, but holy cow, have you seen this other stuff in my life? You know what you got to do? Believe. Believe, just like Abraham. He believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. What is God interested in for you? He's interested in your belief. What do you believe? And your belief shows your heart condition. The second thing is, there's nothing that we can do to elicit God's blessing on us or our family. Nothing. So you know the whole like health and wealth thing, where it's like, well, if we act really good before God, then he'll bless us. If we do our part of the covenant, then he'll really pour it back on us. And if we give our 10%, he'll give us more. That's a problem. That's a problem if we believe that it is only his righteousness imputed into us through belief that gives us blessing and any kind of right standing before God. If we believe that Jesus is the one that did the work on our cross and not our good works in response, then we can't believe that what we're going to do is going to somehow earn God's favor. We can't. And it causes a major conflict because we want to work for stuff. We want God to act on our behalf because we're doing good things. And it can't work like that if Jesus is the one saving us. Third thing is be wary of religious acts. Like I said before, they not only are going to be difficult for you, right? They're not going to help, first of all. Religiousness, like looking good to others, doing the right things so that everybody can see, it doesn't help you, but it actually hurts others. If we have a really religious community here, how easy is it going to be for somebody who's a sinner to come into our midst? Miserable. Because they're going to be like, I could never be any of that. My life doesn't look like that. Jesus must have came for them, not me. And I think that's why there's such a huge divide in the church today, where there's so many people, even young people, leaving the church saying, those guys are a bunch of stuck up, do everything right, always self-righteous, and they always know the right answer kind of people. And I'm not that. I'm a struggler. I sin. I have problems, and I need help. Now, I'm not saying that to you guys. Please, I'm saying it to myself as anybody else. But we've got to be really careful about our religious acts that we think are bringing us good, that in the end are really, really harming us. As we close today, I want you to ask yourself this question. Where is your heart? Where's your heart today? Have you been relying on religion? Have you been doing good things to earn favor and merit and right standing before others? Or are you relying on the fact that you believe God and you trust Him? And that's enough. Which is it for you? And I think that question can be applicable for those of us who have been following Jesus to those who haven't. Those who have been in the church for years and years and those who haven't. And so we're going to close with a video that I think really demonstrates and brings all of this together. During this video, this is actually a closing song. I want us to be able to respond to God and say, where is my heart? And I think this video will bring that out in you. So let's watch the video.
What if I told you Jesus came to abolish religion? What if I told you voting Republican really wasn't his mission? What if I told you Republican doesn't automatically mean Christian, and just because you call some people blind doesn't automatically give you vision? I mean, if religion is so great, why has it started so many wars? Why does it build huge churches but fails to feed the poor? Tell single moms God doesn't love them if they've ever had a divorce, but in the Old Testament, God actually calls religious people whores. Religion might preach grace, but another thing they practice. Tend to ridicule God's people. They did it to John the Baptist. They can't fix their problems, and so they just mask it, not realizing religion's like spraying perfume on a casket. See, the problem with religion is it never gets to the core. It's just behavior modification, like a long list of chores. Like, let's dress up the outside, make it look nice and neat. But it's funny, that's what they used to do to mummies while the corpse rots underneath. Now, I ain't judging. I'm just saying, quit putting on a fake look. Because there's a problem if people only know that you're a Christian by your Facebook. I mean, in every other aspect of life, you know that logic's unworthy. It's like saying you play for the Lakers just because you bought a jersey. See, this was me too, but no one seemed to be on to me. Acting like a church kid while addicted to pornography. See, on Sunday I'd go to church, but Saturday getting faded, acting if I was simply created to just have sex and get wasted. See, I spent my whole life building this facade of neatness, but now that I know Jesus, I boast in my weakness. Because if grace is water, then the church should be an ocean. It's not a museum for good people, it's a hospital for the broken. Which means I don't have to hide my failure, I don't have to hide my sin. Because it doesn't depend on me, it depends on Him. See, because when I was God's enemy, and certainly not a fan, He looked down and said, I want that man. Which is why Jesus hated religion, and for it He called them fools. Don't you see so much better than just following some rules? Now let me clarify. I love the church, I love the Bible, and yes, I believe in sin. But if Jesus came to your church, would they actually let Him in? See, remember He was called a glutton and a drunkard by religious men. But the Son of God never supports self-righteousness, not now, not then. Now back to the point, one thing is vital to mention. How Jesus and religion are on opposite spectrums. See, one's the work of God, but one's a man-made invention. See, one is the cure, but the other's the infection. See, because religion says do, Jesus says done. Religion says slave, Jesus says son. Religion puts you in bondage, while Jesus sets you free. Religion makes you blind, but Jesus makes you see. And that's why religion and Jesus are two different clans. Religion is man searching for God. Christianity is God searching for man. Which is why salvation is freely mine. And forgiveness is my own, not based on my merits, but Jesus' obedience alone. Because he took the crown of thorns and the blood dripped down his face. He took what we all deserved. I guess that's why you call it grace. And while being murdered, he yelled, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Because when he was dangling on that cross, he was thinking of you. And he absorbed all your sin and he buried it in the tomb, which is why I'm kneeling at the cross saying, come on, there's room. So for religion, no, I hate it. In fact, I literally resent it. Because when Jesus said, "It is finished," I believe he meant it.
So as we close, we're going to have the worship team just playing some quiet music in the background. And I just want to encourage you, if something has touched you, like you can tell God's doing something in you through this conversation that we've had today, please come forward and get prayer for that. The point is our heart before God. The point is that our heart is right before God. And so I just encourage you, don't leave here without just getting your heart right before God. So as we close, you guys are dismissed, and those who want to stay and kind of worship or come forward and get prayer can do that. The only thing I ask that you just kind of leave quietly, that gives the people that want to respond, the chance to do that. Thanks.